do some Swedish baking. We're going to make some sweet roll dough, and from that there's a variety of things that you can make. Cardamom braids, tea rings, maple twist, dinner rolls, butter horns, but today we're going to make cardamom braids. We're also going to make almond rusk and Kringler, which is a local favorite. So we're going to go ahead and start with our bread dough because it does need to rise. So whenever I'm making multiple things, I start with the dough so I get it going. In here we have a tablespoon of yeast, 3/4 of a cup of dried milk. I use dried whole milk because literally the only thing in it is milk. And there's a 1/2 cup of sugar. And I promise to follow the recipes today. So we're going to add a 1/2 cup of melted butter. And do not be afraid to make yeast dough. We're going to add some warm water here as soon as it gets warm. Yeast dough is really easy to make. And since I've had so many questions about this, that's why I'm actually going to show you how to mix this up. So we add our water. And just whisk that together. That activates the yeast. You don't have to do a separate activation process. That'll do it. That'll get it done. And we're going to use approximately 7 to 8 cups of flour, and we're going to put 4 of those in here to start with. You don't have to be exact. Close counts and hand grenades and baking. And we're just going to stir that in. So I put what equals 3 cups of milk, 3 cups of water with the powdered milk equals 3 cups of warm milk. From that, you can get 3 large tea rings, 4 mediums, or 6 small is kind of the standard size that we go by. Okay, we're going to add the flour in here and just stir it in until this isn't so soupy. And you're going to have to use your strong muscles to get this stirred because it gets a little stiff. We're going to go ahead and add another. We're at 6 cups now. Again, you don't need a bread machine. This goes really quick. It's very easy. Once you mix this up, you can set it aside to rise and go on with your day. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and use 2 cups. So we're going to go 7, 8, although we probably don't need quite that much. And we're going to make a well. And scrape this dough onto that flour. And there is some weight to that. I don't use a special flour. I do use raw sugar just for personal health reasons. You don't have to use raw sugar. It does give everything a little bit darker color rather than the pure white sugar. And then we're going to knead this. And we're going to knead it until it's smooth, holds its shape, isn't sticky. I was giving a demonstration one time and there was a retired gentleman who had taken up baking, and I wanted people to feel what this felt like because you don't want to mix too much flour in. It'll get really stiff. It'll take a lot longer to rise. It's hard to work with. So I passed around the dough for people to feel so they could have a sense of what to work towards. And he says, "This feels like my granddaughter's baby bottom." And I thought, it does. It's smooth. It holds its shape. It's not too firm. And it's not sticky. Okay, and that is literally it. That's what there is to making yeast bread. A lot of people like to spray the bowls before they put the bread in. It's not a must. And then it's just going to go over here under this nice little cloth to rise. And I've turned the oven on, preheated the oven, and I put the cloth over that, and it keeps it kind of holds the heat into the bread to help it rise. Creates a proofer. Typically, I would not waste this. I would actually sift out the pieces of bread, and I would reuse that. I would use that flour in another recipe, but we're not going to take time to do that. Okay, so now while the bread dough is rising, we're going to make Kringler. And in this pot on the stove, I have the beginning of the top layer of Kringler, which is 1 cup of butter, half a cup of butter, and 1 cup of water. And we're going to bring this to a rapid boil. And Kringler is more of a science experiment than anything. If this top is not rapidly boiling and you mix it with the flour, it will not have the right chemical reaction, and you might as well throw it away and start over, because don't waste your eggs. So we're going to put this on here to let it rapidly boil. While that's coming to a boil, we're going to make the crust, which is 1 cup of flour and half a cup of softened butter, which is already in the mixing bowl. And you simply mix this until it forms into a dough. There are some recipes that add a tablespoon of water, something like that. But there really isn't, it's not necessary. It really does help to have an overhead mixer to get the power behind it. Okay. And I have the perfect baking sheets. This is lovely, isn't it? It's 37 years old. It was a wedding gift. I have no idea where it came from, but it is amazing for Kringler because when it's done, because it hasn't an edge on the fourth side, you can simply slide it onto your serving tray. Let's get a spatula. Okay, so we have this is a dough for the base. It's a pastry dough. We're going to divide it in two. I kind of smash it out so it got it going the right direction. Okay, with the palm of our hand, we're going to use this. This is like moving dirt with front end loader. I've seen a lot of people do this. It's going to take you all day. You want it thin. And honestly, I have, for Valentine's Day, I have made these in heart shapes. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. You can make Easter bunnies. You can make Christmas trees. And then decorate accordingly. But the traditional one is simply a rectangle. And it is quite thin. You can kind of see the pan through it. Come on, baby. Now, if you want that to look a little neater, just run your finger around there and square it up. It's fine. Okay, now we're going to follow the recipe. We're going to add 1 cup of flour to the mixing bowl. measuring more accurately with this recipe is more important than with yeast bread. We're almost melted and boiling rapidly. I have 3 eggs already cracked here. We'll put a teaspoon of almond extract in. You can special order the really big bottles if you do a lot of Swedish baking. Okay, we have a little bit to go. We'll just power up here. Okay, here we go. If this is not what this looks like, if it doesn't hold its shape, if it's runny and slimy, throw it away and start over. Okay? This is the most important part. It's not hard, it's just, you gotta pay attention to that. And now we're going to, while we're mixing, we're going to slowly add in our eggs. And as we can, we're going to increase the speed. Don't increase it too soon. The egg will come back at you. And then mix it, whip it at a high speed until you get a thick, sticky paste. This particular Kringler is not common throughout Sweden, but in one area. Most of the time, if you go into a konditoria or a bakery in Sweden and you ask for Kringler, you'll get the sweet roll dough that we just made in the shape of a pretzel, and it will be lathered with butter and sprinkled with powdered sugar or cinnamon and sugar. So don't be surprised if you go to Sweden and you order Kringler that this is not what you get. So we're going to divide it between the 2 halves. And spread it, covering the entire. This actually is, it's a different ratio, but it's the exact same ingredients as cream puffs. So if you've ever made cream puffs, you've made the top of Kringler. Okay, and we're going to pop this in the oven for 20 to 30 minutes. Ovens tend to vary in temperature, so it's more about the color and when it's done rather than the time. And since we're doing multiple things today, we'll actually set a timer. Okay. Now. Oh, look, it's already done. I love this part of food demonstration. So, when it bakes, this top is going to puff up and rise. It's really kind of cool to watch. And the minute you take it out of the oven, it's going to fall. And that should happen. And some people, we're going to zap, well, maybe I can get it worked here. Some people prefer to drizzle their frosting, so they're going to want their frosting thinner. I personally think frosting should be lathered on. That it should have equal opportunity as the crust and the top layer. And then you sprinkled sliver almonds to taste. Kind of like nuts. Okay. And honestly, if this had not been refrigerated, yep, there it goes. The sheet was not greased. It was not sprayed. The crust has a lot of butter in it, so it will literally slide right off of this cookie sheet onto your serving tray. We're all finished and ready to eat. So here we have Kringler, and you can see we've just slid it right onto the serving platter, cut it. Typically this is how it's cut, but you can cut it any shape or size you want. Here we have cardamom braid, and you can see where the cinnamon and the cardamom is that we put when we rolled it up. Again, slice it as thick or as thin as you'd like. This is almond rusk. These are a teeth breaker. So these were made to dunk in coffee, and that is very traditional in Sweden and here for Swedish Americans, is you have rusk with your coffee. Dip them before you bite into them. This is just to show you can make dinner rolls out of the same sweet roll dough. So, varsågod is what we would say in Sweden. Welcome to our table. Varsågod, a lot of times people think that means thank you or you're welcome. In a sense, it does mean welcome, but when I say varsågod, that means the table is ready and you're welcome to eat.